The countdown is on, just 8 days until the NFL draft, and we have these brilliant football minds. So lucky to have them on the show today. Mel Kiper Jr., Louis Riddick, Booger McFarland. Let's get right to it with the godfather of the mock draft, who released his final 2-round mock today. So Mel, do the honors. Take us through your top picks.
He had an easy #1 pick overall. We had him for 3-4 months. Fernando Mendoza to the Las Vegas Raiders. He's about 22 years of age with 35 starts. 3 biggest games of the year. So hopefully Ginty emerges at running back in year 2, getting some help from that O-line. You got Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer. You go to David Bailey. He's the proven edge rusher for a Jets team. Frankly, he's got to win some football games for Aaron Glenn, right? Who's going to give you an opportunity to get after the quarterback right away? It's David Bailey. 11 of 14 games. He had a sack, 8 forced fumbles over the last 2 years. He was a good player at Stanford. He became a great player at Texas Tech this year. Now, could be Arvell Reese. You want Arvell Reese, who's got that multi-dimensional talent to be off-ball and edge. Edge, though, is a projection. It's a leap of faith on talent that he could become a double-digit sack guy once he learns how to rush the passer. Fallback plan would be, hey, off-ball, he can maybe be a Pro Bowler there. So if you want that versatility, it would be Arvell Reese. Have him going to Arizona at pick #3. Then it gets really interesting. Where is the best player or second best player on everybody's board? Jeremiah Love, great running back who can also be a great receiver, come off the board. I'd have him at Tennessee because of Cam Ward. Cam Ward showed late this year and midseason on he could be an elite quarterback. Get him some help. Love can be that great game-breaking running back. You can get him the ball in the passing game. He can do damage there. Never fumbled the football at Notre Dame, so reliability, dependability is there, and he's a weapon. And we've said all along, when you have weapons like Jeremiah Love, who has that ability to be a great receiver as well, that's why it's not too high for a running back. Because like I say, Jeremiah Love is much more than that.
That's right. Don't put him in that running back box because he can do a lot. So, Boog, do you like or do you love Love to the Titans?
I love Jeremiah Love to the Titans. I love Jeremiah Love anywhere. Like, when you have an opportunity, you know, we talk about all the different things in the draft. Let's talk about value. If you can get the best player in the draft at #4, that's a check the box for the Tennessee Titans. If you can get somebody that's going to help Cam Ward be a more efficient quarterback, you check that box for the Titans. And then the hardest thing, I think, to do in the National Football League, because there are very few guys that can go 90 yards. He can take it 90 yards and is a threat to score from anywhere on the field. To me, it's a home run pick for the Titans. It would be a home run pick for anybody, Hannah. I think you'd be lucky to get Jeremiah Love if you're anybody in this draft.
Yeah, there's a lot of options, though, Boog, with the Tennessee Titans. They look at Sonny Styles to put him next to Cedric Gray as that off-ball linebacker who brings back memories of watch Fred Warner. Who's the comp? It's Fred Warner. You know, you got Robert Saleh there. Does he go defense? Does he take an offensive lineman? I know you're talking about Mike Tannenbaum. We're talking about C.C. Maui Noah there. Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, 2 outstanding receivers are there. But I do believe when you factor in how good he is as a receiver, I said all along, he wore #4. He could have worn number 84 and been a receiver, wide receiver, and been a high pick in round 1. He's got kind of that Reggie Bush versatility. You talk about Jahmyr Gibbs. You talk about Bijan Robinson and Christian McCaffrey. If we said to the Titans you could have one of those 3 guys, would they be pretty happy getting one of those 3 guys, Boog? Sure they would. So Jeremiah Love, we're hoping based on grade and based on what we saw at Notre Dame, he can be exactly like those 3 players I just mentioned.
Yeah, and he can block too. So, you know, just throw that in. And look, they have a new stadium coming in 2027. You want to sell some tickets. Hey, this guy is absolute box office. Okay, everybody loves Love, including Giants GM Joe Schoen. He was asked about the explosive playmaker yesterday. Here's what he said.
Yeah, he's an offensive weapon. I mean, he's not just a running back. Like, he can play on 3rd down. You can split him out. He can catch the ball. So certainly an offensive weapon. We like our running back room now. You know, Scat had a really good rookie year. Tyrone Tracy's been a 1,000-yard all-purpose guy the last 2 years. Devin's back. You know, Turbo, Eric Gray coming off the injury. So, you know, we'll see what happens on draft night. But like the room the way it's constructed right now.
So listen, if Love is off the board, Giants pick 5, obviously. Mel has them taking Ohio State safety Caleb Downs. Mel, why is he the right top 5 fit for the G-Men?
Well, they got a new head coach named John Harbaugh who knew how to utilize Caleb Downs because he knew how to utilize Kyle Hamilton. He stole with the 14th pick with the Baltimore Ravens. So when you have a Kyle Hamilton emerge to be one of the best defensive players in the league, forget safety, one of the best defensive players in the entire NFL, and you know that Caleb Downs, hey, he's not as big and as physically imposing as Kyle Hamilton, but he is instinctive, a tremendous football IQ. He's all over the field making plays. So for John Harbaugh this pick makes perfect sense because of what he had with Kyle Hamilton. And at the 5th spot overall, it's not too high for Caleb Downs. As I said, I think you could make an argument. He's one of the top 3 or 4 best players in this draft. That's what you want at 5. You don't want to reach for the 7th, 8th, 10th best player. Get a guy inside of 5, and Caleb Downs is that guy and certainly will help that defense and bring a culture change. This guy knows nothing but winning. Goes right to Alabama, then he goes to Ohio State. Nick Saban says he's the smartest player he ever coached. That speaks volumes of what football IQ and that the bloodlines with his dad, his brother. It's all football with Caleb.
Yeah, and Saban just had him for that freshman year. All right, Lewis, how do you like this one?
Mel knows that I love safeties. Mel knows I love to draft safeties high. Mel also knows that I love safeties who are kind of a little bit more of difference makers. Look, Caleb Downs is going to be a great player. He's going to be a great player. But if I'm looking at Mel's mock and I'm sitting there and I'm going, Sonny Styles is still on the board and Caleb Downs is still on the board. Look, I think Sonny Styles is a guy who could potentially be a perennial all-pro. Instincts, the kind of leadership, the kind of level up ability that he has in terms of like affecting everyone around him. He's a guy who I just think has superstar written all over him because he's just scratching the surface of his potential. I know we have gone ahead and we have kind of like used a comp as, being Fred Warner. How about a comp of Brian Urlacher? How about a guy who was a safety who kind of just moves closer down to the line of scrimmage becomes a guy who's at the command and control center, and next thing you know, he's in Canton. That's the kind of guy that I think Sonny Styles, I think that's the kind of career arc you could be looking at with this kid, because I tell you what, when you look at him, Anna, you sit there and go, did you star in the movie Avatar? Because you sure do look like one with how big and as long and athletic as you are. That's what he is.
Bug,
I think when you look at the way the
Bug?
Giants want to play, and you look at defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson, let's think about what the strength of the Giants are. They've built this defense from front to back. The defensive line is strong. I know they want to work out a contract with Sexy Dexy. I don't know if they're going to get that done either way. Then you go to the second level of their defense. And although I think Caleb Downs is an excellent player, you talk about his smartness, his ability to make up, his playmaking ability, his tackling. I do like building my defense closer to the line of scrimmage. And I would agree with Lewis there when it comes to Sonny Styles from a linebacker standpoint. You can blitz him. He can go sideline to sideline. The range that he can have in that defense, I would just like to get the guy a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, Mel. Nothing against the safety. Safeties are great, Lewis, but I think the guys that are closer to the line of scrimmage affect the game a little bit more.
Well, listen, you brought it up, Bug, Sexy Dexy, so I just want to work this in here because it looks like maybe there has been made a decision on Dexter Lawrence, because sources are telling the NFL Network, this happened last night, that the Giants are exploring a trade for Dexter Lawrence, the 3-time Pro Bowler. So we'll see what happens here, in the next week or so. All right, moving on to Mel's first trade of the mock draft. It involves the Cowboys making a bold move to shore up that defense, and boy, did they need it. All right, Mel, take us through it. Here we go.
Well, Lewis and Book are going to love this. If Sonny Styles is there, they move up and get him. The Dallas Cowboys do. Because why? Their defense was horrible. Allowed 30 points or more in 9 games. Thrilled. And they're giving up 12-20 to get 6-39. So you get that second-round pick in this deal as well. Not just losing the 12-20. And I don't think at 12-20 they're going to get impactful defensive players. Mansour Delane, cornerback from LSU, will be gone, I believe, by that point. So to get the guy who can be a difference maker, you're going to have to aggressively move up and get him. And I think that's why the Cowboys, I think, would do that to get a guy like Sonny Styles, who's completely, you talk about transfer himself from a safety to a linebacker. The improvement he showed from 24 to 25 was immense. And then to test the way he did, rare talent. I'm with you. If he's around at this point, I'm Dallas. I'm not letting somebody else get him. I'm going to go get him. And I think Cleveland at 6, because Caden Proctor's too rich for me, the left tackle, would be willing to move down and get that extra choice and see what happens. That would give Cleveland 3 first-round picks.
I mean, Boog, I know you love Styles. Obviously, all 3 of you guys do. But do you like this trade?
Oh, I love the trade, but here's the key to the trade, Hannah. Anytime you're trading down, you got to have somebody that's going to trade up. And so I'm very intrigued by what happens next Thursday night as it pertains to the trade down, trade up thing. But if it falls this way, Mel, I think you hit a home run, because the Cowboys have been searching and searching for that off-ball linebacker. DeMarion Overshown, can he stay healthy? You bring in Logan Wilson coming in and try to help that defense. They've been searching for a guy in that green dot spot on the second level of that defense that can make plays and be sideline to sideline. So if it falls this way, I think Will McClay and Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones, they put the cowboy hats on, they put their feet up, and they will be singing Dixie all night in Dallas.
Look, yeah, you know, when I think about the importance of that position and the makeup of that position and what that guy needs to look like, how he needs to carry himself, you know, and how he needs to affect the rest of that side of the ball and the team overall. I go back to my days when I was with the Cleveland Browns and Bill Belichick brought in Pepper Johnson, who was on the backside of his career at that time, but it's just the presence of a big, stoic, athletic, playmaking, in control Mike Backer that when he walks into the huddle and you're standing there and you're looking at him and it's 3rd and 7 and you got to get a critical stop in late November, December because, you know, the game is on the line, you get this sense of confidence when you see a guy who has that kind of resilience, that kind of horsepower, that kind of stick-to-itiveness that says, I know he's going to get the job done. And he's talking to us and making sure that we know that we need to get the job done. And when you talk to Ohio State, you get the feeling that that's what Sonny did for that football team. And then it kind of like it carried over off the football field when he had to have media responsibilities and be kind of the spokesperson for the team and for the defense overall or for the linebacker room. I just think he's made for big roles, for big moments on big-time football teams like the Dallas Cowboys. I just think he'd be a superstar in that uniform in particular.
This has just been a Sonny Styles love fest, the whole first part of the show. And the Cowboys have traded up twice into the top 10, so it's definitely something they have experience doing, and we are just getting started. Jackson.
Well, I think it's positioned, you know, that way when we look at it at 14. First of all, we've only, I think, picked this high not that many times, right, over the last 10 or 15 years. So, you know, that's typically a different type of player that you can get. Looking at the board, we see tremendous value offensive line-wise, as you allude to, receiver-wise, D-line, outside linebacker, edge-type players as well. So I feel like it's a sweet spot for us. We have a chance to address some positions early on, but also I'm excited about, you know, what we see in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds as well.
Vogue, from what you saw of the Ravens last season, what should their top priority be as they approach round 1?
First of all, you know, it's always amazing, guys. Every time the GM talks, they're always in the sweet spot, whether they're picking 1, 15, 29, it doesn't matter. They're always going to be in the sweet spot. That's GM talk, I guess, Lewis. As far as the Ravens are concerned, you know they lost Tyler Linderbaum to the Las Vegas Raiders. They need to strengthen the interior of that offensive line. I think a dream pick for them would be if they sit there and they get to 14 and Spencer Fano is there at 14. To me, that's an easy pick because he brings a lot of position flexibility. He can play any spot on the offensive line. I know the Ravens are set with Rosengarten and Stanley at tackle, but as far as the other positions on the inside, Fanu could go in there and even play center, play any of the guard spots. So I think that would be a dream pick. It's not a sexy pick. The fans don't necessarily like that. Every fan wants a defender or they want an offensive weapon. But I think if you're the Ravens and you lost the quarterback of the offensive line in Tyler Linderbaum, and I know they're looking to replace that offensive line, man, I think this will be a dream pick for them if Spencer Fanu is there at 14.
You're right, Boog. The interior of that offensive line, center and guard. And there's centers in this draft you can pick up on day 3. It goes 7, 8 deep at that center spot. So I think they could get Fano. You can add a center and then tight end. If you can get an Eli Stowers in the 2nd round out of Vanderbilt, that's another position. They're tight end centric. We know that. So the Baltimore Ravens, interior of the line, Venga Owane from Penn State would be in play along with Spencer Fano in round 1, Lou. So interior of the line, and then obviously tight end at some point early on for the Ravens. Kenyon Sadiq would obviously have to be in the discussion at pick 15. Maybe pick 14 if he were there.
Yeah, as you start moving out, you know, from center, guard to tight end, you come to wide. And I think it's the profile of that guy that's going to be so critical. They need a guy at that position who you can say it's 3rd down. We don't necessarily have to have the perfect play. You can just make the play and keep the chains moving. You got to have that right kind of body type, that right kind of competitive temperament, the consistency with catching the football. And the guys you see on your screen, Mekhi Lemon, Denzel Boston, Omar Cooper Jr., these are guys who all made big plays in contested situations, have really good catch and run ability. the kind of things that just makes life easier for a quarterback. That's what they need. They need a guy who can just make life easier for Lamar in terms of, hey, look, just throw it near me. I'm going to get it. I'll pick up the first down, whether it's by route design or by the fact that after the catch, I'm going to run with it. And guess what else? I'm going to be there for 17 games. And then I'm going to be there after that once the postseason starts. I'm your guy. In the critical moments, I'm going to become your guy. So I think it's critical that they nail the profile of the guy that they bring into that room, if that's the choice they go with.
No doubt, Lewis. And if it's not offensive line and maybe it's not a playmaker, you heard Eric DeCosta talk about edge, outside linebacker. That is a position of strength in this draft. And so maybe there's somebody sitting there at 14 that they didn't think was going to be there at 14. I know they got Trey Henderson. They drafted Green out of Marshall last year, but we don't know what Nnamdi Madubuike is going to be. They're always looking for guys up front. He's coming off the injury. They want to deepen that defensive line. And if edge is a position that they feel is a premium one, and we know it is, maybe there's somebody sitting there at 14 or even a little bit later, because you heard Eric say that those are positions that are strengths in this draft, and I would definitely agree.
Lewis, was Boog right that all the GMs say no matter where you're picking, that it's the sweet spot?
I don't think they all say that. I think all these guys think the sweet spot is in the top 5 because that way they can have their pick of whoever the hell they want. I don't think sitting down there in the middle of the first round is a sweet spot because you're sitting there going, I don't know who I'm getting.
Right. Here I am at 14, but, it sounds good. All right, still to come. Ty Simpson has been linked. Wow, so we have another mock trade alert, and Mel has the Cardinals moving into the back end of round 1 to take Ty Simpson, sending picks 34 and 65 to Miami for picks 30 and 94, which kind of got us to thinking of some recent trade-ups for quarterback teams at 25th or later. And over the last 10 NFL drafts, we've had 3 teams that have done it. Obviously, the Giants did it last year, going to get Jackson Dart. The Packers with Jordan Love back in 2020. And, of course, the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, which worked out really, really well, the 2-time MVP. Why does this make sense, Mel, for Mike LaFleur and the Cardinals? They do have Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, a couple of reasons, Fano. First of all, Mike LaFleur. He was with the Rams. There was talk the Rams could take him in the late first round. They don't have that pick anymore. Where did Mike LaFleur come from? The Rams. He's at Arizona, and he can handpick his quarterback. In a division with Sam Darnold, with Matthew Stafford and Brock Purdy, you got to get that quarterback position figured out. He will be loyal. He will try to help this quarterback get better because that's his guy coming in. So I like that tying quarterback to head coach. The first, 9-10 games of the season up till November 15th, he was at 21 touchdowns, only 1 hit, despite having a subpar line and no running game and receivers that didn't catch the ball on a regular basis. Bernard did, the others kind of struggled. Bottom line is, over the 5-game period, 5 straight games, he had a fumble loss. Then the fumble loss against Indiana, but he was banged up. As he said, he was not 100%, not even close to it. So if you're the Cardinals, you got to get, I think, ahead of the Jets. Now, people say, well, the Jets may not take us. They didn't take him at 2-16. I saw a team back in 1984, the Bengals passed 3 times on Boomer Esiason, then took him in the second round. So it has happened before. And I think to say the Jets won't, we don't know. But if you're Arizona, go get him and get that 5th-year option, Lewis.
Yep, I agree. Look, obviously the fit from a schematic standpoint does make sense. All the different breadcrumbs that you laid out all make sense as far as where Mike LaFleur came from, the Rams' interest in him, his fit in a West Coast style system, under center, 3 5-step drops, move the pocket, full field reads, progression throws, layered throws. He can do all that stuff. Here's the, I think this is what bothers me about the whole discussion concerning Ty Simpson. If you watch his tape and you know football, you will sit there and go, this guy makes every throw that every quarterback in the NFL makes. He makes them at a high level in the SEC against the highest level of competition, and he's done it multiple weeks. The question, though, becomes this. Does he have the athletic stamina to be a guy who can do it for 17 games in the NFL for 2 contracts, maybe a decade long? Does he have that? And we don't know, because we feel more comfortable if a guy has shown you that he's done it for the magic 30 starts and he's been, the guy who's always been the incumbent and he's never been challenged and pushed. That's where we start knocking a kid like this. And then, of course, we go, but you know what? He's also not 6'4", and he doesn't weigh 220, and every time you touch his legs, he may break an ankle because he's so slight and all this other ridiculous stuff that we start doing and to try and knock him down. His tape says he has the ability to start in the NFL and play at a high level. The reason why he's not talked about as the very best quarterback is, one, he doesn't have the resume, meaning the number of starts, and two, he's not built 6'4", 6'5", 230. But other than that, there's a lot of, hey man, this is a tremendous debate, and it's going to be fun for us to watch and see, does someone come back into the first, try and get that fifth year, as Mel just alluded to, and hopefully it's a team that runs the San Francisco, LA Rams, Green Bay Packers, Arizona Cardinals type of system. Because if he gets there, he's going to have a lot of people going, well, I did like him. Maybe I just had him too low. Well, I did like him because he's going to fit perfectly.
Yeah,
just
right.
Watch.
In the
He's
right
perfectly.
situation, a la Brock Purdy is not a bad example. Boog.
That's right.
Should teams, though, hesitate? I mean, you just heard all the reasons that Lewis outlined to trade up for Simpson.
Here's the thing that I would say, and I would push back to Mel and Lewis. If you like him so much, take him at 3 then. Like, if he's your franchise quarterback, take him at 3. I've always heard, go get your guy. Well, maybe he's just not your guy, but you're going to try to make him your guy based on the availability and based on the talent and the number of quarterbacks that are in this draft. He's the best of the rest. I'll give you that. But if he was so good and he was such a can't-miss prospect, take him at 3. I think there's a reason why they're not doing it. That's number one. Number two, here's what I would say. I would be very, very careful of trading up and hitching my wagon to a quarterback that I'm not 100% sure of. Number one, because how many times are you going to take quarterbacks back-to-back in the first round? And if he doesn't pan out, are you going to take one next year? I doubt it. And I know Lewis doesn't like this, but next year's quarterback class is loaded. And if you're Arizona, are you willing to hitch your wagon to Ty Simpson this year, knowing what's coming in 2027? So I like Ty Simpson. I just don't love him. I wouldn't trade up for him. If he falls to me in the second round, great. We've seen a lot of teams move on from second-round quarterbacks, but I would not be willing to put more draft capital into a guy and say, I got my guy, because he's your guy. Take him at 3.
Mel?
Heard the same thing, Boog, about Drew Brees back in the day when they took LaDainian Tomlinson with the Chargers and they took him with the first pick in the second round. Drew Brees out of Purdue didn't have great size, didn't have great arm strength. Then he went to New Orleans in a dome. Where's Arizona play? They play inside. That's going to help Ty Simpson, right? And that's going to help him in that division as well, and certainly with Mike LaFleur. So, Boog, it's happened before. I mentioned the Boomer Esiason thing in the second round of the Bengals. They took 3 players before him. They ended up with Brees, the Chargers, great pick there, and ended up in New Orleans winning the Super Bowl in a dome. So I'm all about where you go and who your coach is and the system you're in. I just think Arizona inside for Ty Simpson, having a quarterback that could be a bridge for a quarterback in only 15 starts will help him. And certainly, like I said, I think at that spot, George Young told me, late great George Young told me, when you buy is just as important as who you select. So when you buy Ty Simpson at this point, if you move up and get him, I think would make sense for the Arizona Cardinals. And they still use that early pick on maybe an Arvell Reese or David Bailey. And then they get their quarterbacks, just like LaDainian Tomlinson became Drew Brees.
I just love the fact that you mentioned George Young. Just stuck on some great memories there of the great George Young. By the way, Mel, I think you're on to something, because this is new on NFL Live from Field Yates. On the final day the prospects are allowed to make pre-draft 30 visits, hey, Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson is visiting the Arizona Cardinals today. Wow. It's as if he's just on a mind meld with Mel there. All right, new on NFL Live, new Dolphins GM John Eric Sullivan spoke to the media today and gave some insight into what he's looking for as he reshapes his roster.
Worked in Green Bay with a guy that used to always say, be careful about trying to hit the home run and make sure you just hit the double off the wall. And in other words, I think you take everything into consideration, but what you can't do is swing and miss.
Mel, they have so much draft capital, 2 in the first included in that. What's the best way for them to maximize these picks?
First of all, at 11, if you can get CC Maui-Noa to help that offensive line out, and then you look at maybe making a move at some point and trying to get back out of that first round. You got that for the Waddle trade. Make the trade with Arizona. And Jeremy Bernard, the wide receiver from Alabama, solid, consistent, reliable. Cornerbacks in need, Hannah. Chris Johnson from San Diego State is a fast riser. They can get him maybe in round 2. They have a lot of work to do, obviously, on both sides of the ball. But with those first 3 picks, if you can create that by moving out, get into the second round and get Bernard, get that secondary help. The edge rusher is going to be an area they have to address. I think they can find some of those guys in this draft as well. So this is an opportunity with so many holes and so many neat areas to do a lot of damage. But 11, just take the best player. And if Maui Noah drops that far, take them. And if they can get out of round 1 into early round 2, do it. Because I think you're going to get Jeremy Bernard at that point. Doesn't matter if you took him at the end of the first or early second, you're going to get the same player. And there's other wide receivers. Keep in mind, they need 2 or 3, Hannah, and that's the deepest position in the draft is wide receiver.
I mean, they just have so many needs. Again, 7 picks in the top 100. That would be their most in a single NFL draft. But as he said, you got to hit on those. Mock has both pass rushers getting drafted in the first round. Ruben Bain taken at 8 by the Saints. Akeem Mesidor at 31 going to the New England Patriots. Not the first time that Miami could see 2 defensive ends drafted in the first round. It did happen a few years ago, back in 21. Jalen Phillips goes to the Dolphins. Gregory Rousseau to the Bills. And since 2000, the only other school to do it, that was NC State in 2006. And Boog, when you look at these 2 prospects, what's the ideal situation for them to thrive at the next level?
Well, they need to be put in positions where they can line up and get off the football, because I think both of them know how to play on the edge. Jason Taylor, the defensive line coach at the University of Miami, has done an outstanding job of teaching them how to rush half man, how to use power to get to the quarterback. They may not be flashy when it comes to all the hand movement and all these different things, although I think Mesidor has more of that than Bain, but they are power players that understand how to work half man and make plays in the backfield. And I get it. The measurables may not be there for Ruben Bain. The ideal age may not be there for Akeem Mesidor. But here's what I would tell you. I dare you to turn the tape on and find me 2 guys that are more productive in the college football game this past season than these 2. And at the end of the day, that's the name of the game. Can you make plays? Mesidor and Bain, they do it with physicality, they make plays, and I think whichever team gets these 2 players are going to get guys that make a unique and immediate impact, Lewis.
Look, every scout in the NFL will be heading down the Coral Gables immediately every single year as long as Jason Taylor is down there coaching the defensive line to see who they've got next. Because the kind of relationship he has built with these 2 in particular, and that he's going to build with some of the young guys that he has on his roster right now down in Miami, is special. Jason has made these guys absolute technicians, tacticians. When you watch the University of Miami in person and you see these guys down on the field working with Jason, you see the entire defensive line working with them, but Bain and Mesidor in particular, those guys were so lathered up and had worked so hard. It was like they had played a game before the game. Then they went out in the game and just terrorized that game for 3.5 hours. Jason has hit a sweet spot down in Miami. Bain and Mesidor have taken everything that he taught them, and they're going to take it right to the NFL. These dudes are studs, man. You get goosebumps when you talk to them, and then when you talk to Jason, because they do it the right way. They're football guys. It's just that simple. And Jason's one of the very best. And I would implore everyone to spend some time with Jason Taylor, because he's a freaking superstar when you're talking about the coaching ranks. He's an absolute superstar.
I mean, just watching that piece, like you want to run through a wall for the guy. And their defense, they had the most sacks and the most quarterback pressures in FBS last season. So it is absolute gold having him there. All right, still ahead. Mel Kiper's